morning. Thank you for having us. I'm Jared Auclair from BioConnects New England, also Northeastern University. Excited to be here. Thanks to the Lynn Museum for hosting us. Fantastic space. I'll be back to my family. And to the mayor and his team for helping coordinate the event here today. I'm going to speak a little bit later, so I'm not going to say too much right now except to introduce the mayor, which is always weird for me because we share the same first name and it's like not a common thing in my life usually. But Mayor Jared Nicholson from the City of Lynn will kick us off with some opening remarks, and then we'll pass it to Jim Caldwell, the Executive Director of Economic Development in Industrial Corporation. Mayor, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Thank you to the Lynn Museum for hosting us. Thank you, all of you, for being here. It is so exciting to see so many familiar faces. Thank you, Professor Auclair, for working with us to put this on. My team and all your work on this. Danny Smith, our policy director, and Valerie Vaughn, our communications manager, Lynn EDIC and Jim Caldwell and your whole team and our planning department, all the folks that came together to put this on. We're really excited to have you all here. I'd like to recognize Ward 3 City Councilor Coco Alonso. Representatives from our state delegation as well, from Senator Craig's office and Representative Vaughn's office. Thank you. Sure, go ahead, Bob. There are so many wonderful organizations here, which I think is a really strong indicator of the momentum we have here in the city to try to be creating good paying jobs in an industry that we know is here in force in the region and needs to be open to more sectors of our economy here in the state of Massachusetts. BioConnects New England has been doing a great job leading an effort across the region to do just that, and we're thrilled to be partnering with them to have Lynn as part of those efforts. Lynn is the place to be for doing this work. You know, we have a large and ambitious workforce. A lot of you know that we are about 1/7 the population of Boston. We're about 100,000, a little over 100,000, probably more than that, but officially 101,000. Boston's about 700,000 or so, 1/7. Our public schools are 1/3 the size of Boston public schools. We're a young city, we're a working city, we're an ambitious city, and those students are our workforce of tomorrow. And for us to be here now and planning those pathways to get them good paying jobs is exactly what we should be doing. And you know, we've had these conversations. A lot of you were on the developer tour that we did in the fall. Jim's going to speak more specifically to the steps we're taking in life sciences, but we're so excited to be talking specifically now about workforce development because we know that the investments that we are working to bring, that we know are coming eventually to the city, part of that is beyond our control. There's other factors that happen when the right company finds the right spot in the right moment. But we can be doing this workforce work, and that's a win no matter when the investment comes to the city of Lynn, because those jobs are up in this region, and our residents should be in them. And so this is really, to us, a really important step to make sure that our residents are able to participate in this world-famous industry that is in our backyard. And so we're taking these steps. We're working with the Metropolitan Area Planning Council on a workforce development plan. We're in the middle of that. A lot of you are working on that with us, and we appreciate it. And we're going to have other opportunities for everybody to engage on that. That plan has already identified priority industries that we know we want to be working on to make sure there's paths for our residents to get into good paying jobs. And life sciences is absolutely one of those industries. And we know that for those paths to exist, collaboration is key. And that's why I'm so excited looking around the room that we have the folks from the city, we have the folks from the school department, we have the folks from higher education, we have the folks from our nonprofit partners, we have the folks from organized labor, the carpenters are here, we have folks from Northeastern University, we have the private higher education, and we have really across the section of industries, because that's what it takes to build those paths. And we know that if we're going to be successful we have to be able to rally around a message that is reinforced across these different organizations, because we're looking to reach people in a moment when they decide to change their future and pursue a career path. And those moments can be hard to find, I think. And I think the reality that we all recognize is that it's really not going to be one single moment where someone says, aha, this is what I should be doing. It's a message that we want to cultivate together across these sectors that we can then pass along and reinforce. So if you're getting that message when you're thinking about your high school options when you're in middle school, you're getting that message when you're thinking about your next step options after high school, and you're getting that message when you are reaching out to your ward counselor because your family member needs a job, and we're saying the same things about places to go and people to talk to and opportunities that exist, and creating a real path that have the supports along the way. I think that's when we make real progress in creating those good paying jobs for our residents. And so we really appreciate the collaboration that's here today. It's so wonderful to look and see a packed room that's invested and interested in helping our residents get into these good jobs in life sciences. So thank you all so much for being here. Look forward to a great conversation.
Awesome. Couldn't have said it better myself. I'll try later. No. All right, Jim, you're up. Jim Codwell, the Executive Director of Economic Development.
Thank you.
It's a long time. I'm just going to let you go ahead. It's almost as bad as mine.
That's okay.
You got it.
Good morning. Try this again. Good morning.
Good morning.
There you go. Thank you. So there's a lot happening in the City of Lynn, and so we're in the process of creating a vision. And when you look at the downtown, there's a transformation that is happening. Zoning has changed. You can come to Lynn, build a 10-story building, first floor commercial, everything else residential. You can do that without a city council vote. You can do that by right. I would challenge you to find another city of Massachusetts that has that type of zoning. We've added in the past 3 years, 500 people now call downtown Lynn their home. That will have a huge economic impact moving forward once we kind of push COVID in the rearview mirror. But that began with a vision. So when you're looking at our waterfront, there's a transformation that's happening. We had 19 public meetings. We heard from everyone about what they wanted on the waterfront. New zoning was created. Master waterfront plan, and the planning department's here helped create that with the open space plan. So there's new zoning that's in place. We currently have $500 million in new projects. That's a lot of zeros. There's a lot of new projects happening in the waterfront. Abandoned lots are now being developed into mixed use. Our waterfront is about to change dramatically, and that happened with a vision. So the city is creating a vision. When it comes to life sciences, when Mayor Nicholson took over, the very first meeting I had with him, he said, I want life sciences in the City of Lynn. That was the first meeting we had back when he took over. And we've taken many steps to make that vision become a reality. EDIC, on behalf of at the mayor's request, joined MassBio. I think we're one of only 2 municipalities that are members of MassBio. We've reached platinum status here in the City of Lynn. I think there are 37 communities in the entire state that have that status. We attend the events and we network, and our consistent message is that Lynn is the next place for life sciences. The mayor referenced the developers tour. We had a developers tour last fall. We had 70 people come to Lynn and participate in the tour. We had several sites, so the folks hopped on a couple of trolleys. We took them to the sites. They were greeted not by real estate brokers, they were greeted by property owners who wanted to say, we want you here. We want life sciences here on our property. It was a great event. The speakers were the mayor. We had the CEOs of MassBio and Mass Life Sciences. I don't know if Ken Turner is here yet, but he was one of the speakers. The mayor and the city council unanimously voted for a life science ordinance, which will make it easier for life science companies to open up shop here in Lynn. So when you're looking at these steps, all of those steps that we took, with our workforce that the mayor referenced, with our partnerships with community college and Lynn Tech High School, Lynn is the next logical place for life sciences. Very quickly, tell you a quick story about Solya. If you haven't heard of them, you will be. They're a smart textile innovation company. Today, they're located at Union Wharf in Boston. This year, they will be located in Lynn. They're moving to Lynn. The city and the state offered a tax incentive. 60% of the facility will be manufacturing, 40% will be lab space for innovation. In 5 years, they will create 100 new jobs with an average salary of $85,000. Part of the tax incentive said that they will work and partner with North Shore Community College and Lynn Tech High School for those jobs. And one of the best calls I've had is when the CEO came to Lynn and made the decision to pull the plug, to go forward with the city. He called me and he said, we looked at the building and we said the building works. Then we took a walk in the downtown. Then we ate at one of your restaurants, and he said, this is a place where my employees not only could work but could live. And I think that was a great message. So you'll be hearing a lot about that. But Lynn, when you look at our history, it has a history of innovation. The first jet engine was built right here in GE. The first night baseball game was here in Lynn. Marshmallow fluff was created here in Lynn. Who doesn't like a good marshmallow fluff? Very healthy. The first cannery in the country was right here in Lynn. The first airmail was delivered from Saugus to Lynn, and the first electric trolley in 1888 was right here in Lynn. So we want the life science jobs, we want the tax revenue, but it's the innovation, right? It's who we are, it's our history. So on behalf of the mayor and the administration, we want to officially roll out the red carpet and say welcome to the City of Lynn. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Jim. Thanks, Jared. Thank you all for being here. So, why are we here? Why am I here? For all of you. For collaboration and partnership with the city, with the state, with the region. If I asked you all to define life sciences or biotechnology, I think you would all give me a different answer. Largely in the Commonwealth, we would default to naming companies like Biogen or Alnylam or others, really in the biopharma space. For me, there's an important opportunity for the state and the region to stay competitive in the life sciences by really thinking about it in terms of bioinnovation and the bioeconomy. And really diversifying our definition of what biotechnology, the life sciences are, to include other things like biofuel or cell agriculture. Maybe one day we'll be eating meat that I've made in my lab. Sounds kind of gross, but who knows? But really thinking about diversifying what the life sciences is in the region so that we can stay competitive. And continuing to invest, I think, in the life sciences is crucial so that we, as a country, can stay competitive. I only put this up here to put my email address on it because really the intent for me is to hear from all of you, to talk to you all today, to build a community and relationship, and for everybody to reach out to me and say, Jared, this Jared, and that Jared too, I suppose. Let's come and do some stuff in Lynn and make it so. So I'm on board and ready and willing to help. First of all, shout out to all the women in the audience. It's International Women's Day. So also, I think I'd like to acknowledge the fact that there's still inequality between men and women, in particular in the workforce, even in the biotech industry. And one of the things that I would like to see change is that, in fact. So let's work for that and drive that also. My wife's at home, she works full-time in pharma also. So, she actually does get paid less than her male counterparts. Not ideal. So why are we here? I want to talk about biotechnology, which I did. We want to bring more opportunities to Lynn. I think that Lynn is the next place for the life sciences. I would just get rid of the next and say Lynn is the place for the life sciences, especially in its geographic location here on sort of the North Shore and connecting to the rest of the state. There's a lot of activity happening here. You could be anchored here, in particular with Lynn's history of innovation and really thinking about how we tie innovation to the life sciences more holistically. So really just want to help drive that. The BioConnects New England initiative is, it was a torturous process, right, Chris, of writing a grant for the Department of Commerce. But it's more than that. It is a coalition meant to tie together all of New England to drive the life sciences and the work that can happen here, and then connect us to other places around the world, like North Carolina, California, and others. So really driving those efforts. I would argue that our main focus currently is really on workforce development. Every time I talk about workforce development, I get in trouble, because I think it's an opportunity for, especially for higher education. I work at Northeastern. That's a fine university. It's a 4-year university. Tuition and room and board is $90,000 a year-ish, which is a lot of money. So really thinking about workforce development and integrating that into somebody's career from, like the mayor said, reaching out into the high schools and middle schools and creating pathways. And this is a pathway that you can see more clearly on our webpage that we envision for biomanufacturing in the life sciences. From engaging at high school and middle school, linking to apprenticeship programs like Mass BioEd has, and linking to the associate's degrees and other degrees throughout one's career, but not continuously, per se, in a 4-year chunk, but really over the life of one's career, right? I actually believe and talk about work-integrated, skill-based credentialing as the way to go for workers of the future. And when we think about that, you know, we use badges that link to other credentials and degrees, and Chris will talk to us in a moment about what GMGI is doing, which is super exciting, and really think about that. So on the top, we have the educational stakeholders, but we can't do it without community engagement, using stackable credentials like I mentioned, really hands-on services, wraparound services, and employment opportunities. What's the point of doing workforce development if there's no job for you at the end? There's no point. We also have to engage the communities. We've heard from many people that there's just not enough workers to fill the needed life sciences jobs in Massachusetts. I call bullshit on that. There's plenty of workers in Massachusetts to do that. We just have to train them and give them the opportunities, which also means that we have to think about housing, transportation, childcare, food insecurity, and a whole host of other things. Those are critical aspects for success in any industry and in this industry. And I think Lynn is well positioned with the commuter rail here and other things happening to really link to those opportunities. I mean, it's an exciting time. My phrase that I use everywhere that people who know me who are here probably are sick of me here saying is science is really for everyone. And we should make that a reality by building trust in the community, by being on the ground, hands-on. And like I said, thanks to our Lynn Museum folks for hosting us, but this is a great space. I could do a workforce development right here for the City of Lynn on some biomanufacturing job or what have you. The coalition focuses on the middle. So research and innovation in Cambridge and Kendall Square, process development and commercial scale manufacturing. Process development is going from small scale to middle scale before you get to large scale. And that's where a lot of things go to die in the bioeconomy. So really doubling down on that space for biomanufacturing writ large to give people an opportunity to enter the field. And then that's a place that I focus on because it links to other parts of the bioeconomy. You can use the same principles to make a drug that you can use to grow meat in your lab. Yes, that's what I'm doing that. That's why I keep saying that. I'm trying to carry down those walls so people aren't like, oh, meat. Yeah. So really, this is what it's about, and this is the work we do, and I'll let Chris elaborate on what she's doing in a moment. We also think about it as an opportunity to find regional partners who do training and connecting us together as opposed to us living siloed and working together to drive those innovations and opportunities. These are just a few of our partners, and I know that Don is someplace, I lost him, he was right in front of me, is talking about a Lynn lab, right, and what that might look like in terms of entrepreneurial work. So I think the 3 factors for success in economic development from what I can help with is use-inspired research, entrepreneurship, and workforce development, all together, right? And we need all those things, and you have all those things. I mean, I was so excited to see North Shore Community. I don't come out, I don't leave my house very often, apparently, but like the community college right across the street, I'm like, oh, this is fantastic. So I'm just going to leave it with this before I give the floor over to Chris as we transition to the panel in a few minutes. I'm going to give you a warning. Every time I do a panel, we ask the panelists questions, and then we run out of time. I'm going to start by opening the floor to you all to ask them questions. So I'm giving you now as an opportunity to think about what those might be. If there's rocket silence, then I'll prod with questions, but I hate having a panel and missing the opportunity for the engagement with the audience. So we talked about what biotechnology is, how I define it, and the opportunities to expand our definition and really grow the life sciences across the state, but in particular here in Lynn with the history of innovation. How we can all partner together. The turnout of all of you here speaks to that already to me, and I want to help facilitate. I also do work, but facilitate in this context and really think about what we can do. The more important to me is I want to hear from all of you today, and that's why I'm going to open the panel conversation first. And Joe and Ryan can ping Ken to warn him. But thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. And now I'm going to hand over the floor to Chris Bolzan, the Executive Director of Gloucester Marine and Genomic Institute, a good friend and colleague and partner in crime in all these things. And I'm really excited to hear what Chris has to say today.
All right, thank you, Jared, and Jared for inviting me to be a part of the conversation today. If you're wondering why someone from Gloucester is here, it's because we've been doing work like this for 10 years now. This is our 10-year anniversary, and we've gotten here with the tremendous support of a lot of the people who are in the room right now, primarily Mass Life Sciences Center, which has provided tremendous partnership guidance and critical funding for our organization. But GMGI, Gloucester Marine Genomics Institute, is a mouthful, so I'm going to tell you it's GMGI, was founded 10 years ago in the hope that the ocean could be a renewed source of opportunity for a community that was struggling with the downfall of the fishing industry and the decline and the catch limits that were put in place. Our young people were struggling. Folks who for generations had engaged in the maritime economy no longer could find opportunity. And a group of entrepreneurs, fishermen, community leaders, and scientists who lived in the area got together and said, what could we do to change the conversation in our coastal community? And out of this, many breakfasts at the table of Joe and Maggie Rosa, who were two of the founding protein scientists of BioConnects, and they happen to live in Gloucester. From their kitchen table came the idea for GMGI. Gloucester's celebrating its 400th anniversary this year, and we're kind of jumping on that bandwagon and celebrating our 10th alongside them. The GMGI story can be a little bit complicated, and I see a lot of familiar faces in the room, and I know many of you have heard that story before. I'm looking at Stephen directly. So what I'm going to try to do today, with the few minutes I have up here, is tell the story to those of you who are new to GMGI, but also give the people who have heard me speak before something different to chew on. And our story is a little bit complicated because it's built across 3 strategies that blend and braid beautifully together, but might seem a little bit complex. It's a bit of a marketing and a communications challenge, I will admit, but we have a research institute powered by Genomics that is looking for new opportunities with a molecular biology platform from the ocean to solve some of the most vexing modern challenges: aging, cancer, fisheries and aquaculture, ecosystem function and health. We also have a workforce solution, which I'm going to tell you a little bit more about in depth, that is helping our young people find a path to the thriving life sciences and biotechnology's career opportunities. But our overarching goal is to catalyze our regional economy. It's a tough story to tell, and so this fall we created a short video that will give you all, I'm going to share it now, it'll give you all a sneak peek behind the curtain inside our labs and give you a chance to hear the story from some of our amazing staff, board members, and graduates of our academy. So do I just need to hit play on here? Spacebar. Spacebar? Nope, nope. Would you try to
We may be here too.
This is our lab. Gloucester's historic waterfront. Okay. So this building here, many of you have been here. It was once an old eel processing plant that was completely in disuse for over a decade. And local community members, entrepreneurs gathered together and said, this could be where the Research Institute is located. We can repurpose this. The city had to do some work because all of the buildings on Gloucester Harbor need to be for marine use. So they redefined the parameters so that marine research could be considered marine use. And with a $2.7 million investment from Mass Life Sciences, we were able to build out the location, which is where our research institute is now located. Our workforce development operation, the Gloucester Biotechnology Academy, is a few miles up the road in an industrial park because we were able to access that real estate a little bit faster. The rent there is half the price of the harbor front. And we currently have 6,400 square feet up the road at the Biotech Academy.
We can show after.
You can show it after?
I know.
Okay.
I'll just be your slide person now.
All right, I'll do the slides. So our mission is to address critical challenges facing our oceans, human health, and the environment through innovative scientific research and education, and by bringing world-class science and transformative workforce development to Gloucester's historic waterfront. GMGI is catalyzing the regional economy. We have a three-part strategy, which I highlighted: our research institute, our workforce development solution, and our economic development effort, which we call Science Community. I'll mention Science Community a bit here because some of you have been a part of our Science Community initiatives. This is where we try to showcase to the world that Gloucester is an awesome place to do science, and I know you could do that here in Lynn as well. We started by hosting a science forum, which has now been running for 8 years and gathers over 100 scientists from around the world to talk about the power of genomics, particularly when applied to marine technologies. 2 years ago, we added a workforce development conference, which this year brought 100 people, a lot of people in this room came to that, to talk about innovations in biomanufacturing workforce training. And we actually had a few attendees from around the country, as well as lots of folks from the North Shore and the Commonwealth more broadly. And by bringing people to Gloucester to talk about these things, we're getting a chance to say to them, hey, look what exists here and how Gloucester can help propel these initiatives forward. I'm going to focus today, though, since we're talking about workforce, on our Gloucester Biotech Academy. The Lieutenant Governor, Karen Polito, had called us a few years ago. This is the workforce development model for an innovation economy, and I just keep repeating that. Very, very briefly, it is a 10-month program. It requires 7 months of hands-on training in our state-of-the-art biomanufacturing learning environment, followed by a 3-month paid industry internship. In 2022, we did away with tuition, and we added stipends for students who qualify, essentially living below 150% of the poverty line. These wraparound services, which Jared also alluded to, are incredibly important to help people invest in themselves, be able to take the time to do the training before the wage of the internship kicks in. So the stipends only cover their first 7 months of the experience. We have over an 80% graduation rate. What we're seeing now, since we eliminated tuition and we added the stipends, we have a higher retention rate than ever before. There was some skepticism on our education council whether would students take it as seriously? Would there be enough skin in the game? The skin in the game is changing their lives. And we're seeing that with these financial supports, more students are able to get across the finish line. So that 80% graduation rate is going to go up this year. And we have over a 90% career placement rate. Now, I came to GMGI from MIT Sloan, and let me tell you that 90% career placement rate rivals all the best business schools in the world. We're pretty proud of this. And we're exploring opportunities to scale. These are some of our employer partners. I realized when I reviewed my slides this morning, I missed Pfizer, which is a pretty exciting one. And one of the things I'm excited about Pfizer is Pfizer actually has a real program to welcome neurodiverse learners, people who have traditionally been underrepresented in the life sciences industry, to come. They train their managers to create an inclusive and belonging environment and to help navigate challenges that are going to break the bachelor's barrier. So I feel really remiss that Pfizer's logo wasn't put on my slide. but now I get to give them a special shout out. What you'll also see here is there are a number of organizations that were a part of the North Shore Innoventures, and Chris is here today. Some of the companies that are being incubated up in Beverly in the Cummings Center, they are fantastic employers, and our students tend to like those jobs better because they're smaller, they get more responsibility, and they have a chance to get in at the ground level and grow with the organization. Another shout out to the partnership and collaboration that exists here. Ryan, MLSC, has sponsored over 40% of these internships with the Mass Life Sciences Center Internship Challenge. They help make it possible for smaller companies with under 100 people to be able to afford to have an intern. Okay, so I can give you all the stats and the numbers, and I know they tell a great story, and they're frankly outpacing the norms for vocational training nationwide. But the real story here is the individual stories of the lives that have been changed. Every graduate's experience is a story of a life transformed. So if you indulge me a few more minutes, I'm going to tell you 3 stories. And I picked these 3 stories yesterday. I have 100 stories I could tell you, but these 3 I thought represented something that I thought might be appealing to the folks here in Lynn. I'm going to start with Ray Monsiano. We love Ray. Ray was one of the first graduates of the academy. And he entered our first class when nobody even really knew if this idea was going to work. He had graduated from Cristo Rey High School in Lawrence, and through, I believe it was Catholic Charities, he had heard about GMGI. We work really hard with community-based organizations to find young adults who are struggling to connect with college or career. Who needs us most? Who's ready to invest in a life-changing experience? Who will be dedicated to that? That's the only requirement, that and a high school diploma. And some of the kids, we have to help them get the GED to be able to start, but that's all we require. There's no math requirement, no science requirement, no testing, and no financial commitment. We just want kids who are dedicated to making this possible for themselves. And Ray was one of them. He had been working in different shipping and packaging roles for factories, bouncing around since he graduated from high school, but had always loved science. He had the perception that so many do that science is only for the academic elite. And he loved it, but this was a pathway into it. So he got an internship with New England Biolabs in Ipswich. This is a picture of Ray as a student. I hope you can see it, with his mentor, Tony Francis, who was a senior scientist at New England Biolabs. Mentorship is critical for students. It's critical for all of us, right? But mentorship particularly helps our students keep advancing, get across the finish line. We require a 2-year commitment of all of our mentors because some of the biggest stumbling blocks happen after they leave us and they're on the job and they experience imposter syndrome, self-doubt. They're struggling with managing the commute or the professional work environment. So Tony was a really important part of Ray's journey and continues to be so. All these years later, Ray is still working at New England Biolabs, but New England Biolabs has helped him along the way advance by getting an associate's degree from Northern Essex Community College and ultimately a bachelor's in science and biotechnology from Salem State. We have articulation agreements with Salem State, now with Northeastern, thanks to Jared, with some of the community colleges and more. We're working on those articulation agreements now. So that for students who want to keep going, who feel like they have the ability to do this now, they can advance in their careers. It is not necessary for success. Our certificate program is proven to put you on a path towards a 6-figure career with robust benefits and opportunities. But if students are inclined, and about 15% of our graduates have accessed our articulation agreements and have gone on to pursue higher ed. So that's Ray. He's amazing. Another point I like to make about Ray's story is we did a 5-year impact study after we had graduated 5 classes. 40% of our graduates are still working for their original internship employer. And let me tell you, no business school anywhere can tell you that. It is a testament to the training is effective, it's been designed in partnership with industry, and our placement process is effective. Students stick with it, and we match them well with that internship. Okay, this is Allie Bryant. Some of you who were at our workforce conference met Allie. She's amazing also. I actually used Allie's picture to remind me to make sure I mentioned the Goldilocks effect. One of the things I like to talk about our program, and John Doyle, our education director, who is extraordinary, he'll say it was dumb luck. I say he was incredibly wise and strategic. This program is just long enough. If you're asking a young person who has struggled in school to go get a 2-year or 4-year degree, it's very hard for them to get across the finish line for a whole host of life reasons. If the program is too short and they're only being trained on one specific skill, they hit a lot of roadblocks along the way in the job. And employers get frustrated that they need to continue to train them. The program that John Doyle and his team designed at our academy gives students a robust skill set for a broad range of careers in biotechnology and biomanufacturing that can allow them to advance and can allow them to pivot if they've landed in the wrong place to begin with or they want to do more. So Allie is a great example of someone whose career has been able to advance. She graduated from the academy in 2018 and did her internship with Dana-Farber Cancer Institute. She was somebody whose life had been affected by cancer as a child or family members and was so excited to do work that not only challenged her intellectually but felt like it supported her spiritually. She felt like she was doing meaningful, exciting work. She is now, she spent 18 months at Dana-Farber after the internship, and she is now Research Associate 2, which is technically a job usually only given to a master's graduate, at Vesigen Therapeutics. She was recruited by a former mentor in GMGI's program who kept his eye on her for many years because he recognized how extraordinary she was. She was originally hired as his lab manager, and then she's moved up to upstream production coordinator and then became a Research Associate level 2. The robust training she had at the academy enabled her to do this. She's never had to go for any additional education. Last story I'm going to tell really quickly is Cody LaChance. I love telling Cody's story because he's a fishing story. He would have been a 3rd-generation fisherman. He actually went to Rockport High School and loved science. One of the things Cody always talks about when we bring him to events is he was the TA for science at Rockport High School, but he wasn't somebody whose family could help him or he didn't have a cognitive network that was supporting him going to college. He always loved science. He was the guy keeping track of the lab for his high school, mixing the chemicals in the morning for classroom science experiments. But then he worked at Best Buy for a year and then 8 years as a line cook at Woodman's in Essex. He didn't want to fish. There wasn't a job for him on the boat that his father and grandfather had fished on, and he'd been a cook at Woodman's. A friend of his, also a cook at Woodman's, told him about the academy and convinced him to do it with him. They did it together, and that's one of the things our students need. They need a community. They need a partner. They need more than just a mentor. They need peers. And these two went on and killed it in the academy. They were amazing. They were both a little bit older. Cody was 28 when he entered the program. Our age range is about 19 to 30. Cody and his friend Cole, they asked to do their internship together because they were relying on each other to stick with it. When they had their own self-doubt in the car in the morning, they pushed one another to keep going. And they both took an internship with Rand Biotechnologies, also one of the Cummings Center. It's actually a graduate of NSIB. And they are both now still, 2 years later, laboratory technicians at Rand, loving life, and they're two of the people that I believe have hit the 6-figure mark. We have a little celebration every time an alum calls us and tells us they've hit the 6-figure mark, and we're ringing that bell pretty often lately. So these are our stories, and I have 97 other ones I could share with you. I hope you'll take the time to come visit us and see what might be possible in Lynn. I learned this morning that 4 students from Lynn have applied to the Academy for fall entrance this past week. Because we've been here in the community, we love Lynn, we think this is possible here, and we've been doing what we call What the Heck is Biotech information workshop at the middle school and Lynn Classical High School, and we've been doing evening workshops through Lynn Pathways. So I was so excited, I texted the team on my way here, I'm like, are we making progress attracting students from Lynn? We in fact have 4 applicants already for the August and November start dates. So we're thrilled to be here and happy to share the story.
All right, thanks, Chris. We're going to take a 10-minute break while I have the panelists join me at the front table here for a quick debrief, pre-brief, and then we'll reconvene. And like I said, I'd like to ask you to ask them questions first, because really the goal for me is to hear from the community and how we can better support you to bring the life sciences here. So 10 minutes, and we'll kick it off. So I'm excited to have an esteemed set of colleagues that I've worked with over the years and continue to work with today. Great partners in the biotech space in the state of Massachusetts and beyond. We have Raul Gonzalez from MAPC. I'll let them say a little bit more about themselves, and then we'll kick off with questions. Zach Stanley from MassBio. Sarah McDonald from Life Science Cares, and of course Ken Turner from the Mass Life Sciences Center. Thank you all for being here with us. We appreciate it. Maybe I can give you each 5 minutes to introduce yourselves a little bit more, and if there's anything in particular that sparks your interest that we talked about this morning, or in general in your day job, please roll.
Wow, 5 minutes is quite a bit of time. Let's start with my life story. So I'm Raul Gonzalez, he and his. I am an economic development planner for the Metropolitan Area Planning Council. We're a regional planning agency of 101 cities and towns in the greater Boston area. I manage the Economic Development District, which is a federally designated district by EDA, the Economic Development Administration. I hate repeating the same terms, but EDA, economic development, are pretty common things for me to say in my conversations. My family still doesn't know what I do. I also oversee the Racial Equity Municipal Action Plan program, along with our partners, the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston and the Government Alliance for Race and Equity, of which Lynn is one of our member communities. So that's really something that NAPC has taken a really keen interest in and building upon our work. And yes, I think generally my work entails partnering with potential applicants to the Economic Development Administration for funding, particularly in things like recovery and resiliency and equity, and as well as creating our comprehensive economic development strategy. That's a document that every 5 years we update to incorporate some of our goals and our values. Our 2020 to 2025 plan, which came out in a very convenient year. A pandemic happened. It was focused on 3 main goals. That is making sure that we are reducing the racial wealth gap in particular, but other types of wealth inequality in our region. That's fostered by our research along with the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston. Accessibility of not just transit options and transportation options, but also in digital equity. And to make sure that there is, and this is something that was incorporated during the pandemic, the ability to withstand economic hardship for a long period of time. And we're talking about families and individuals and communities to be able to withstand such a deep economic impact that generally affects those that are of the least means hardest, and they're the ones to be able to recover last. So that's really generally how we are guided as an economic development team in APC.
What Raul also forgot to mention is that he's a great teacher, because everything I learned about economic development and the EDA processes, I learned from you, so thank you for that.
Half of it's BS, but that's fine.
You can ask my wife, I'm all about BS. Zach.
Good morning, everybody. Zach Stanley. I'm our Chief of Corporate Affairs at MassBio, and I just want to thank you all for being here. This topic couldn't be more important from an industry perspective. And thank you, Jared, for hosting this and having MassBio be part of it. MassBio, to give some context, we are a trade association, so we represent on a state level the biotech industry and the life sciences industry. We have about 1,600 members right now. And the interesting thing about the biotech industry in particular in Massachusetts is it's probably not what you think unless you're really deep in the weeds of our membership already. About 1,000 of our members are biotech companies. You know, they're doing drug development, they're doing research and development, early stage research primarily, but the majority of those companies, probably 600, 700, 800 of them, have less than 50 employees. So, and the majority of those are really more like 15 to 20 employees. So the cluster of Massachusetts and why Massachusetts is the place it is as it relates to biotech is early stage R&D drug development. And that's different from any other state in the country and really any other place in the world, and it's what makes us special. Those companies are spinning out of colleges and universities across Massachusetts on a pretty regular basis. So if you're seeing news about a biotech company either merging or going out of business or something like that, you can know that there's 2 or 3 more in the pipeline that are just about to announce and pop up and open up shop somewhere across the state. We've seen unbelievable growth of our industry here in Massachusetts over the last 10 years in particular, and the big reason for that really was the support of state government. The Life Science Initiative passed in 2008, and a reauthorization, and I don't want to steal Ken's thunder.
Go right ahead.
But Ken, it's just all to say that Ken and the team there is an unbelievable partner to the growth of this industry, and we work with him and his team every day, and we all are really pointing in the same direction on an ongoing basis, which makes me believe that the work we're talking about here today is possible and can get done. But to give you a little context, 130+% employment growth in the industry in the last 10 years. So we're up to 115,000 directly employed in the biotech industry in Massachusetts. And those are awesome jobs. They have great pay, great benefits, and if you get your foot in the door in one job, one company, as Chris has pointed out, the opportunity to move on to another company or move up within that company is huge. So workforce is top of mind for our members. Just to wrap up here, every single day talking to a member company, workforce is top of the agenda. They are having trouble hiring people across all levels of employment. And they're having trouble keeping people in those jobs because the field is so competitive. It's easy for somebody to go out and have a cup of coffee and come back with a job offer in hand. And that's a problem. If we don't have more people entering the workforce, that is going to continue to be a problem and probably only get exacerbated. So as we think about workforce, it's really quantity into the workforce of trained people from all different levels, but also thinking about it from a diversity perspective, and again, across all different levels. Diversity in life sciences shouldn't just be entry-level jobs. So we need to be thinking holistically about this issue.
I think the 2 things, the partnership is key. I also think that, interestingly, we often don't think about research as an opportunity for workforce development and entering the field. We should do that more, which is basically what you just said at the end, which is something I'm super passionate about. And really excited, just to summarize, to say the state of the industry is still strong. And will be for the foreseeable future. Sarah.
Thank you very much. Sarah McDonald, President of Life Science Cares. We're an organization that sits sort of between and connecting the industry, the companies, the individuals that make up life sciences, and community organizations around a mission of fighting poverty and inequity in the community. So we're part foundation and raise funds and invest in community organizations in a variety of ways. Organizations providing basic needs, education, opportunity. We also support community organizations with connections to the time and talent of the life science industry. So thinking about how to leverage the capacity and energy of professionals and all of those that make up the life science industry toward community building in general. I'll say, the state of the industry is strong. I will say the industry takes our responsibility back to the communities in which we live and work very seriously. Here in Greater Boston, Life Science Cares in the last 6 years has invested about $10 million in local community-based organizations, organizations running training programs, providing STEM enrichment throughout the Greater Boston area to help continue to, of course, drive the workforce and solve the workforce challenges Zach referenced, but also to continue to build meaningful connections that bridge the gap in access to opportunity in the industry. We'll talk a little bit more about that, I'm assuming, in questions. I will also just say we think about the industry in its broadest possible sense, which is this is an industry with scientists for sure, but it's also an industry that has salespeople and marketing people and facilities people and accountants and lawyers, and the opportunities exist for an individual with any level of interest, any path to connect to our industry. And so thinking about scaling connections and understanding of what the life science is really critical to long-term sustainability.
Yeah, and I think I couldn't say anything better myself, except to really highlight that the industry is not just about the scientists at the bench. I mean, even those of us who are trained to be scientists at the bench don't necessarily do that so much anymore, which is because that's not really what I wanted to be doing after all, or I came to learn, but also community. And that's one of the reasons why we're here in Lynn, is really to engage community and see how we can partner with you all, with life sciences.
So, good morning. For those of you who haven't had the privilege to meet, I'm Ken Turner, the president and the CEO of the Massachusetts Life Science Center. If you're not familiar with the center, Zach alluded to it, it's an outgrowth of the 2008 Massachusetts Life Science Initiative passed under Governor Patrick in partnership with the legislature. And the idea was to take a fledgling life science industry here in Massachusetts at the height of the Great Recession, pump some energy into it, energy being $1 billion over 10 years. I think that's a fair amount of energy, don't you think? And in effect, make Massachusetts the #1 life science industry in America. That was the vision. Fast forward to 2018, Governor Baker and the legislature reauthorized the center with an additional $623 million to invest in our ecosystem here in the state. And so to give you some sense of how that investment has paid off, other than the obvious, which is Kendall Square and the Seaport District, and the fact that we are #1, not only in America, but in the world, we've invested $900 million into the ecosystem in, say, a decade and a half, and that has generated a leverage investment of $5.3 billion. $5.3 billion. I think, as a, to any taxpayer who can do math, that says 5 to 1 in terms of your investment. I don't know about you, but I'm an old country boy from Louisiana. I'd take that math any day of the week. We've invested $600 million in capital investments over the last 15 years, which has generated $1.3 billion in leverage investments across the state. Zach talked about our workforce. We've created some now 106 to 110,000 jobs here in Massachusetts over the last 15 years or so. Average salary, $200,000. $200,000 average salary. Chris, who is a dear colleague and friend at GMGI, and does wonderful work. We've got people spinning out of her program starting 65, 70, 80 grand a year. 100,000, right, with overtime. So you go from working 2 and 3 jobs as an immigrant and not making enough money to be above the federal poverty line, and suddenly now you're in a position where you not only have a job, but goddammit, you have a career. And you're on a glide path to go back to school if you want to go to school. You've got benefits if you get pregnant, or if you get sick, or you want to take a vacation. To me, that is truly living the American dream. And so if you sense a sense of passion in me when I started to talk about workforce, that's the thing I've been focused on in the 2 years since I took this job in state government. It's helping people. And so when I come out to places like Lynn and visit with the mayor, your economic development director here, Jim, it's because I want to see life sciences in places like Lynn. And I am deadly serious. Speechifying, which is what state guys do. But here's the clicker. For all of that wonderful, robust picture I just painted, those of us who live in this world every day know that we've got some serious headwinds. I was listening to the radio as I was driving in, and there was a local PBS station that was actually talking about life sciences, and my dear friend Kendall. They were talking about a piece that ran on her in the Globe, and they were saying, well, do we need to take state money and continue to invest in an industry that's so successful, right? That's the flip side of the coin, right? If you're number one, then, hey, mission accomplished, all done. Well, we know better. We know better. We know that we don't have enough workers. Anywhere I go, I crisscross this state, like almost every week, thanks to my staff or not thanks to them. And so I am in companies every week, including this week, and there's not a company I visit that has a ready, willing, and able workforce ready to go. I see that as a challenge, but also as a terrific opportunity for us as a state to say, here are the places where we can lean in collectively between the private sector, our training providers, our colleges and institutions, and now come up with a new, different, energized, diverse workforce that changes the complexion of our life science industry, right? And so I'm sure that that's one of the things that we want to talk about here, so I'll shut the hell up and let you.
Thanks, Ken. Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. We definitely want to diversify the workforce. And what I would add that I would like to have stop is when I go to Cambridge and Kendall Square and I sit in a meeting with HR, and to quote them, they say, Jared, send us your BIPOC students. Yes, we want to diversify the workforce, but not in a checking the box type of activity, but really in meaningful and impactful ways that can give people opportunity for change. And also, we still need to continue to invest in the state of Massachusetts to stay competitive internationally in the life sciences. This is a passion of mine for a whole host of reasons. So we thank the center and Ken and his team for all of their continued work, and all of you for your partnership with all of us. So now I will give the opportunity for anybody in the audience who would like to pose a question to do so. Please, in the back. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm wondering if there are actually community groups here today from Lynn. I'm also wondering if you're aware of the gaps that exist in the oversight of biolabs. And do you really think that they're bringing them to the underserved community of Lynn to do us a favor? So I'm just wondering if there are people here today from Lynn. Yeah. Are you aware of the gaps? Do you understand that the Government Accountability Office has regularly reported that these gaps exist, but we're going to proliferate labs in close proximity to where the community is?
We see the future in our young people over here, and then we are just looking for ways to close that gap. And I think that your concern should be addressed in.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you so much. And thank you for the question. Thank you for the question.
The concern is the children, okay? The concern is about the families. And if she's the one community member, this is alarming. You guys are here to sell, excuse me, I'm not talking to you. Oh, okay, thank you. So we have two people from Lynn.
Raise your hand from Lynn. All right, well, thank you so much for the question. I think you raised.
Are you guys aware of the risks?
Yes.
Are you guys aware
So
that
if you could
year
just-
after year, the Government Accountability Office has been warning that there are gaps? Why are we rolling these out? Why are we rushing these out? We need to put a handle on what's happening, not just keep pushing them out like hotcakes.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. And I think, you know, a real question here. Obviously, this is an open event, it's a transparent event, and we appreciate the perspective and the question. I think part of the underlying concern here is around safety, and I think we absolutely consider that to be a top priority. I know the industry does, and you know, we've had these conversations over the course of the last year about the steps that the city will continue to take, working with our state and federal partners to assure the safety of our residents always
The
a top
government,
priority.
the federal
So
government
we
doesn't
really
have
gotta
a
let everybody
handle.
ask a
The
question.
federal government
So-
doesn't have a handle on the safety issue.
Thank you so much.
This is
Let's go to
a
Jackie.
serious problem.
Thank you. Thank
Good
you for the
morning.
question. Thank you for
Good
being here.
morning.
Jackie, yeah.
My name is Jacqueline Fitzhugh, and I'm from an organization called New Land Coalition, and we are a coalition of nonprofit organizations in Lynn that represent our community. And I'm excited about what you guys have said, what you're trying to bring to Lynn, but like this young lady also, I have concerns about safety too, and I'm concerned about Lynn being a city of immigrants and ending up with the worst of the life sciences jobs or tech. But my question is, since this is pretty much a new industry that is opening up and coming to Lynn, and our mayor talked about wraparound services, and you're talking about a workforce that you can't find enough workers, what are you going to do about childcare?
Glad you asked. So let me talk about it. I'm going to stand up. I had surgery on my knee and I hate sitting because it hurts. So we did a pilot with a med device company about an hour or so outside of Boston late last year. I'm sorry, what's your name?
Jackie.
Jackie. Thanks for the question. And you're absolutely right. We got to think about all the services to help people make the transition from service jobs, the hospitality jobs, no disrespect to those industries, to our industry. And so in this pilot that we did with them, and you guys will love this, we took your training, right, for a typical, I think it was QA specialist. We looked at maintenance tech and what was the other job? Joe, do you remember? Maintenance tech, and then the other one was biotech, sorry. Those are the three jobs we looked at. We boiled down the skills to the core skills, because what I wanted to do was to collapse the training so we could get, and I'm going to get to this in a minute, just bear with me. This is the southerner in me who has to take you around the world to get to my point. So I wanted to get people into the jobs as quickly as we could, right? I didn't want 8 months worth of training or a year worth of training or 12 months worth of training. I said, what's the bare minimum amount of training that we could get a person up in skills so that on day one, when they report to work, they can actually be a valued member of the team and to contribute. We worked with the company to figure out what those core skills were. We brought in 7 training providers who worked with us, with the company, to build out a curriculum that can do that in 4 months. 4 months. First cohort will actually launch this May, and I think it's going to be 10 or 15 students in that cohort. Now, here's the piece you're talking about. The other part of, now, all of this coming from the center, so we're paying for all of this, right? We're paying for the curriculum development, et cetera, you name it. We're putting all the money up front, not the company, not the students. I want to provide childcare, transportation, and a stipend, so that when people are going to class, they can actually go to class and not have to worry about working at McDonald's, no disrespect to McDonald's. But I want folks to be able to make the transition from those jobs to our jobs. Now, we got a new governor. We have a new Secretary of Economic Development, which co-chairs my board. I met with her yesterday, literally just yesterday. And she's as excited about this as I am, which is we want to build out a program that will provide all of those services and the funding for me to continue to do this across the state. Across the state. We'll have to build it into probably the economic development bill that will come out in a few months towards the summer, but I'm hopeful that we can. And I think that this administration, which seems to have a real appetite for apprentice programs and support programs, and understands that if you're going to take adults who have families, that we have to support them across the board. We can't just simply say, oh, leave this job and go to that job, and in the meantime, you figure it out. So my answer to you long-windedly is, I think we are being thoughtful about how we go about this, and we're willing to make the investment. And oh, by the way, the idea is when they come out of the class on the other side, they work for the company for 90 days, and then the company pays us back at a 50% rate. And every company that I've walked through this idea, every last one of them say, sign me up. So I think we can get there from here, is my point, and I think we can do it in a thoughtful way. But if you have other ideas about things that we need to be thinking about, I'm happy to have a conversation with you, and we can, I'll take your feedback, okay?
I appreciate that, and I would like to continue the conversation.
Sure. I'll make sure, Joe, let's make sure that she gets my contact information.
Yeah, and we thank you for the question also, and I think it's an important question and an important opportunity to have those conversations, right? I mean, we're not going to solve all the problems unless we work together to solve them. And I think that's the key of, one of the keys of what we're trying to do and think about. And yes, the focus for me right now is life sciences, but I think about it across the board. Sarah, did you have, or Zach, or Raul, of that?
Yeah, I would just underline it. I appreciate Ken sharing that story. I mean, that concept that the industry is invested in the whole person, and really when we say making connections around opportunity, that isn't just we're looking at you as worker 1024 that we need to plug in 2027. I can wholeheartedly underline that this industry is deeply concerned and committed and invested in a lot of actually bigger picture issues that start to really be the tension, right, in the jobs. It is childcare, and there's a very active industry presence in a coalition on early childhood education in particular. And thinking about our very earliest learners and how do we make that possible. In housing, and I know both of you have talked about how do we really make sure people have the opportunity to live where it makes sense for their family and be able to reach their job. And so these aren't divorced, right? I mean, it's actually really exciting to me to see the different number of stakeholders in the room, because the only way we envision the future is everybody understanding our role and working together toward it. So.
Well, as you look across the country, I think that the secret sauce, and Zach alluded to it, sorry to cut you off, is Massachusetts has done, the one thing that we have done better than Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Maryland, Georgia, California, is the collaboration and the partnership between the private sector, the public sector, our research institutions, our academic institutions, our non-for-profits. That has been the secret sauce. It really has been. As I talk to my colleagues in other places, in fact, I'm meeting with several secretaries from Rhode Island, I think on Friday, coming to my office. Conversation after conversation, how can we do what you guys have done in Massachusetts? And they think it's all about, oh, just write a check. You know, New York just said they're going to pump $1 billion into their industry, try to replicate what we've done. They can't replicate what we've done. They can't. They can't. They don't have our people. It's our people. That's what makes Massachusetts special, and it's our collaboration. So good luck, New York. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I could just add a little bit. You know, the economic competitiveness in Massachusetts in this industry is a good thing in this context as it relates to childcare. Childcare is an economic-wide issue, right? There's no industry-specific issue as it relates to that. But in an industry like many others that saw the number of women dropping out of the workforce at huge rates during the pandemic, and some of whom have never come back, and who is looking for tens of thousands of new employees, we can't ignore that issue that if somebody can't find childcare, they can't come to work. So it's not a matter of like if we're willing to do the work, it's a matter of having to do the work, because otherwise this doesn't work. So you can just be assured that this is top of mind, because if you can't find somewhere to live affordably, if you can't get to work, if you can't find somewhere to put your kids while you're at work, I've had 2 kids in full-time daycare for 9 years straight now. I could have paid for 10 college tuitions, I think, at this point. You know, it has to happen. There's no other option.
Just to add to that point, you know, it's really just the fact that we should involve community organizations, that we should involve the local population, must be a constant. And it never should be from, hey, we need a favor from you. That is not how it operates. And I'm appreciative of this conversation we're having today too, in order to do that, because I'm a millennial, elder millennial as they call it. And the concept of work to us is much, much different than those of our parents and grandparents. Sometimes viewed as spoiled, but quite frankly, is one where we need to realize that what we're investing into our positions, into our jobs, needs to be reciprocated 24 hours a day, both in the places that we live, in our communities, in our families as well.
Go ahead.
Buenos dias, good morning everyone. I am Francis Martinez, president and founder of the North Shore Latino Business Association, the largest small business organization in the North Shore. And what really brings me here today is because I do want to learn about all the information that you have to offer, but I also don't want to leave the huge component, which is the language. So I'd like to invite all of you, if you could present this information as well in Spanish, so like that we have more engagement, more commitment to also be able to bring that, all this opportunity that you have. I do also have concerns about the safety. I also have concerns about housing and childcare. Because in order for us to be able to bring something to the community, we have to bring it as a combo of information and also benefits. So we're here. We're available to listen and to also be able to echo the information that would benefit our community. So thank you so much, and I'm looking forward to hear your answers in regards to this, in regards to the language.
I think also I would like to reiterate my thanks to you for being here, because that's what is one of our goals, right, is to bring information so that we can also then share it with your communities at large, right? Because, and I won't sidetrack this conversation with safety, but I'm a scientist, I work at the bench, I talk to public health boards all the time about safety. And that's a story for another day, but on the language.
This is a very personal topic to me, very much so. My first language was Spanish.
Was? Not at home, not at home. You have to speak Spanish.
Casi ya lo olvido porque mi familia sí hablaba español, pero yo quería mi escuela y televisión querían que hablar inglés. And quite frankly, the fact of the matter is when I was growing up, Spanish was viewed as a language not to speak. And the concept of language accessibility was for me to learn English. And I'm glad that that's changing in that realm, but there needs to be more done in language accessibility in all of our communities, far, far more than what we have now. Far often than not as a child, I was the go-between between my parents and a car dealership, having to learn how to translate, warranty to Spanish, simply because that's how we had to operate. And I don't want it to be that way. I want it to be not just Spanish, but multiple languages within our communities to have the ability to access our government, to access the different entities that exist out there, because I think that adds to that barrier of trying to connect to a community organization when we can't actually speak to the community. So that's a very, very valid and strong point. And I'll keep trying to learn Spanish.
A couple of thoughts. So, on the housing piece, this is central to the new administration and central to the government. She has created or proposed, at least in her budget, which was released to the legislature on the 1st, establishing a separate agency that will focus on housing. It used to be in the old model in the cabinet, it was the Secretary of Housing and Economic Development, but now it's going to be just Economic Development, which is Bolzan Howe, my boss, and there's going to be a separate housing agency, assuming the legislature approves it. And I can't imagine that they wouldn't, because I think all of us know, with the average cost of a home in Massachusetts being north of $700,000, that's not sustainable. And so I say that to say this. I think that, that focus from her and this administration hopefully will go a long way towards chipping away at this issue around affordable housing and bringing down the cost of housing by increasing housing stock. I mean, it ain't rocket science. I'm a missile guy, so trust me, I know rocket science. It's straightforward. We just need more houses, right? More houses, more supply, you bring down the price. On transportation, just yesterday, she and the Lieutenant Governor were out touting their program around affordability of mass transit. She rode the MBTA and announced a program to, in effect, I think, kind of subsidize the fares for people making, less money than folks who in this room probably make more money, right? So again, I think that focus of this administration on those two central issues will go a long way towards helping all of us, because to Zach's point, this is not unique to life sciences. I mean, this is just, no matter what industry you're in, you need a place to live, and you need to be able to get around, right? And so having them focus on that, I think, is important. The piece that you mentioned that particularly resonated with me is, as a marketer, because that's really my background, coming from the private sectors, I have 25 years of experience in packaged goods and media, is the fact that we can have this great industry and these great jobs, and if we don't socialize it, if we don't tell people about it, if we don't educate them on the opportunity, then how would they ever know? How can you be an architect if you've never met an architect? How can you be an astronaut if you kind of don't know about, like, the fact that that's an occupation? And so there's a great organization that did a pilot that I supported through the center, through Lab Central, which you may be familiar with in Kendall Square. It's an incubator, which we funded, by the way. We funded all of the incubators across the state, including Interventures with Crystal. But they did a marketing campaign called what the heck is biotech? Thank you. I'm the marketer. I can't remember.
Well, that's how it's life sciences in full color is the marketing.
Yeah.
And life sciences in full color. And so programs like that, campaigns like that, have to be part of that training initiative that I talked about. It isn't just about the curriculum, training the trainers, providing the lab, paying the students, you know, and wraparound service and all the rest of the stuff I talked about. The other piece, which I didn't talk about, is making sure we have money in the budget for an advertising campaign so that we can make people aware of it, and making sure that that advertising campaign is multilingual. In my own home, my wife is Haitian. Her parents barely speak English. My 2-year-old son speaks more. I can't speak Creole. In fact, when I'm in a room with them, everybody's having a conversation but me, right? And so I'm well aware of it every day, of the fact that in Massachusetts, one of the beauties of our state is that we have a large and vibrant immigrant population. Whether we're talking Cape Verdeans, whether we're talking Haitians, whether we're talking people of Spanish descent. And so there's a sensitivity to it, there ought to be. We don't not like immigrants here, like Florida.
I think the other thing too that I would echo on the back end of Ken's comment, because I'm not on the panel, but you know, I got the floor. We love the marketing campaigns, but we want to find people, whether it's any of us, who can come to your community and talk about the opportunities.
Right.
Have the conversations that we're having here today. Nobody likes a difficult conversation, but we need to have those conversations. Science is for everyone. We need to build trust and relationship and really open those doors by actually being on the ground.
And by the way, to Jared's point, I'm available anytime, anywhere to have this conversation with anybody.
Thank you. One of the speakers this morning mentioned that Pfizer is doing things to help neurodiverse people. Isn't that hypocritical given that Pfizer and the vaccine industry and big pharma and the biotech industry in general with their products are causing so much neurological damage and other injuries and even death in children and adults in our community? We need to shut down big pharma and biotech, not allow them to build more labs everywhere.
Yeah, we appreciate your view on that, and recognize your view, and it's something for us to think about and consider. As a life scientist, I promise you we do more good than harm, and that's our intent. Every person up here, myself, every person who works in industry, in the government, we have the same goal, and that's the patient. And keeping the patient in the front of what we do. And there's capitalistic infrastructure that makes that possible, that we can't avoid, but that's our goal, is patient safety. There was a question, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Pete Meany. I'm a small business owner here in Lynn. I just had a question on, so you said 4 months for the student.
Yeah.
And then they have an entry-level job. At what point of further education would they need to fill the jobs that are really in demand?
So, Pete, great question. And you're right. Once they get in the door, the idea is they now, you know, are part of the workforce for that company, and now they can go back to school for further training, either through an extension of the apprenticeship, or they can go to the community college, or they can even go to 4-year school, but now you're doing it at the company's expense rather than the student's expense. And they're doing it while they're making, you know, a decent wage, right, with benefits. So yes, it would take further training once they're there, but the company gets the fact that they can bring somebody on without the full suite of training and immediately have them be a valued member of the team.
And I think that the key too in thinking about that for somebody who works in higher education is really thinking about work and career and layering education on top of that as opposed to the other way around, which is the historical model.
Right.
And thinking about, which is what I'm holding this on purpose, what this is meant to be a start at, is showing like, you get these skills, you can do these jobs, here's a highway with 10 on and off ramps, and you can enter here and exit and come back on whenever and however you might like in your career. So actually thinking about work integrated learning, where also that some of the work that these people do after their trains can count towards other credentials that can get them a bachelor's degree if that's what they want to do. So really thinking about it more holistically.
The other thing I didn't talk about is, as I'm talking to, the head of Sanofi or Takeda or J&J or BMS, who these large biopharma companies, is what I call over-credentialization, which is mission creep, as we say in the military. They've got these jobs and they've layered in all these requirements, where they say, 4-year degree required. Well, many of the jobs don't require 4 years. And so what I'm asking them to do, and there's a willingness and an appetite for it, is to go through and do an audit of all of their jobs, whether we're talking about, the sales job or the marketing job or government affairs, lawyers, etc., and making sure that we are looking at the base skills that a person actually needs, so we're not like souping these jobs up and putting all these requirements on it that they don't actually need. So that's another part of how we're thinking about readdressing or better addressing, better addressing our talent gap.
And I think the key to that is skill-based learning. Because what I learned in the classroom was all well and good, but what I learned on the job was much more invaluable.
Hi. A question. So I imagine many of you folks have been to many panels like this in other communities, and I'm really pleased that Lynn is getting on this train. I think Lynn is a perfect spot for this, and it's a fantastic community. I also know that down in Suffolk Downs are building out a huge area, so if everybody's getting on this train, 2 questions maybe for economists. Is there capacity? And I keep hearing there is. And if there's limited capacity, what is Lynn going to need to do to really make this happen?
Yeah, I can start that conversation. A couple of years ago, we estimated there was probably 20 million square feet of new lab and biomanufacturing pipeline across Massachusetts. Last year, that number was anywhere between 30 to 50 million square feet. This year, that number is probably back down closer to 20 million. But the positive vibes, I hate that word, but about Massachusetts are very strong. And what's happening is developers are not saying, we are out of this game entirely. They're saying, what's Massachusetts going to look like in 3 to 4 years? And they're still making major investments across the state. And the reasons are a fewfold, but it comes down to a few that are primarily economic. Is Boston and Cambridge, in terms of lab development, are full, for all intents and purposes, right? Like, there's not a lot of lab development that's going to happen in either of those places right now. And regionalization is critical to this industry because of workforce, primarily. And the pandemic has only exacerbated that problem in a lot of ways, or maybe it's an opportunity now and not a problem. People want to work in jobs that are close to where they live. If they're not working remotely full-time, the next greatest thing for employees is working at a job where they don't have to sit in traffic for an hour and a half, like I do.
Me too.
And so that's creating huge opportunities for communities like Lynn to be successful in it. It's not a race. I don't want to call it a race here, but it's an opportunity where developers and tenants are looking where the employment base is, and Lynn fits centrally into that picture. There's so much potential employment base surrounding here within a very easy commute that a lot of those people are currently traveling to Cambridge. If there was a cluster here that they could come down to work here, whether it's on the train or otherwise, that's a win-win for everybody. The location matters. The ability for permitting and building to happen quickly matters, and that's where being a bio-ready platinum community is going to pay off big time. If a developer and tenants are looking across a few different communities in a regional belt, the ones that are ready to go, that have space, that have the workforce, and have transportation network that's ready, are going to be absolutely top of the list. And Lynn checks all those boxes.
Just to add to that, essentially, we need to think of this as a regional ecosystem, and it needs to be something where there is a complementary system that exists amongst different municipalities in different parts of Massachusetts, simply because our municipal borders are not the end-all and be-all in our world. Just thinking of, just adding to that, essentially, you know, MABC did a study not too long ago about the life sciences corridor, and really thinking about which communities are best for utilizing startup space, or lab space, office space, including recruitment, education space, biotech space and higher education, as well as industrial space, and seeing that there is quite a bit of fit for multiple communities to be a part of that process and to be a part of that cycle.
Awesome. We have time for one last question.
My name is David Zeller. I'm a longtime businessman in Lynn and the director with the North Shore Latino Business Association. My focus is as a facilitator, taking the person that's looking for the job and helping them connect with the person who has the job. With all of your and fortunately at the moment, I'm heavily involved in the minority community. I'm a marketing person for more than 50 years, and with all of your advertising, I see the sign, but I don't see how, as the person that dreams of the job, how to reach you, okay? So, Chris had some great ideas. I loved her program. I just submit to you that when you're advertising, there should be a little tagline. For more information, contact. I mean, everybody here you're preaching to the choir in this room, but I'd like to be able to go back to our organization and hand out 50 business cards and say, I met Sarah, she can help you out, mention my name, and call her. I mean, that's what the success in life is all about, networking. I appreciate that you're here. Next time, just bring more business cards. So
I won't actually push that to the panel, because I'm going to give them an opportunity in a second to close out with a final thought before the mayor and I wrap it up. But that's a great point, right? And I think the Life Sciences and Full Color campaign has a QR code that you can take a picture of and get more information. But for me, this is a conversation amongst all of you, so that we can start to have the conversation, hear what you're thinking, hear your concerns for your communities, so that then you can re-engage all of us, and bring whomever is you need to those conversations to your communities, right? Because like for me, the only way we're going to get people, you know, one of the hardest things I think for us in training programs is recruiting participants. Because if you build it, they don't come. If you build it, they will come is not, Field of Dreams is not what happens. Right, so really, you have to get out there and engage, and we want to engage. I don't want this to be, I want this to be the beginning of the conversation, not me just bringing a bunch of stuff with the city and flying away. That's not the intent. So, you know, that's why I put my email address on these slides, and we're going to follow up after with an email to all of you, right, so that you can contact us. I don't know everything, but I surely can point you in the direction of many things, and flood people's inboxes. But in the interest of time, 1 minute closing thoughts from each of you, and then the mayor and I will wrap it.
Just to add to that closing thought as well is, you know, these industries and this system has to be closely aligned with the community and with local organizations. There's just no way around it, because that conversation, that relationship should have started decades ago. And really thinking about how life sciences really needs to connect to local and regional stakeholders in education, in workforce development, economic development, to really partner in a way that is going to be connecting to every generation within your community. I don't want kids to go and look at something like this and say, well, that's not really for me, or to think that this kind of industry isn't what I can strive to. It can be difficult. I don't know how you can compete with TikTok nowadays, you know, or I make my nephew watch BattleBots because he loves stupid robots fighting each other somehow. It's the most entertaining thing in the world. But to really connect the younger generation to the life sciences industry and to connect it through language access, through connecting to the different BIPOC communities is going to be very, very key.
Yeah, I'll close by saying I think there's never been a time, in my career here, and I'm not that old as you can tell hopefully, but that as many stakeholders in our industry, in government, in nonprofit sector, in education, training providers have so much attention and resource put towards the workforce issue. And it's all very extremely positive, and I will say that it's a work in progress. I know there was a lot of work done 10, 15 years ago that fizzled out, and there's some wounds there that need to be healed a little bit. And it's not a straight line, unfortunately. This is not, let's just put up a huge job board and have them filled. It doesn't happen that way. Ken says we have to fix job audits or job descriptions. We got to. If a company had it up to them, they'd hire every person from Harvard and MIT with a PhD, and they just call it a day. And in a lot of ways, they can get away with that, but they shouldn't anymore. It just doesn't make sense. So the efficiencies have to be built here, the network has to be strengthened, and we have to make it easier for people to see themselves in the industry and then figure out the pathway to get those jobs. And I think we're all doing that collectively now, and I'm really excited for the future.
I think maybe I'll follow on that. I spent the first part of my career in life sciences thinking and sort of operating internally in industry, but the last 6 years I've spent more time in communities, and in communities who are most often approaching not knowing what life science is. So I will underline that this is a new conversation for us as an industry. I wholeheartedly believe that we are committed to digging in, to going deep, to having tough conversations, to bringing the resources that are going to be required to bridge some of these gaps to the table, but it is a long-term commitment. I guess I would encourage all of you to hold us accountable. I'm hoping that the folks will get our contact information after, but as we tell our summer internship students, every time you meet a person, go connect with them on LinkedIn.
Which is now a business card through QR code.
Exactly.
You can see how old I am.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm like, oh goodness, did I bring business cards? But hold us accountable too, right? I mean, we really, this is a people business, this is people work, and there's a tension between strategy and the best laid plans and actually executing in the community, and we need to feel the voice and the pressure from the community to continue to drive that way. So really look forward to digging in with all of you.
So, as I think about where we are at this moment in time, I think we are in an incredibly unique spot. Coming out of COVID, I'm not quite sure how to frame that. Living with COVID, right? Maybe it's a better way to say it. We've got a incredible investment of federal funding in the state. We have a new administration. We have revenue from taxes that we know were far outpaced what we thought we would have. So all of that to say this, on the backside of that, we've got millions of people out of work who won't go back to the jobs that, are open. So to me, that says they don't want those jobs. It's pretty straightforward. So I think we've got an opportunity. When I came to government some 10 years ago, over in Veteran Services, which is where I started as a deputy secretary, we had lots of great ideas for how to service veterans, but oftentimes didn't have the funding, to drive it home. Now I come to work kind of feeling like the tables have flipped. We've got a huge tranche of potential funding, and we need to make sure that we lean in and recognize that for all of our success, we've got to lengthen our lead. We have to lengthen our lead. We've got to, as Kendall said the other day to the Globe, we've got to keep our foot on the accelerator. That this is not the time to rest on our laurels or to let up. It's the time to dig in. And to me, the number one thing that we've got to focus on is our workforce. Yes, we've got to do good science, and we're going to continue to invest in it. We invested in Moderna, 10 years ago when no one knew what mRNA was. The center invested in it. And we've got to continue to do that type of thing. Yes, we've got to focus on business development, bringing companies here, supporting them, scaling them up, and then spreading them out. And by God, we're going to do that. But my number one concern is people, access, diversity, and regionalization. And anybody who wants to hold me accountable to that while I'm in this job, God bless them. I'm happy to have that lens on me because I want to stay focused on this. And I am hell-bent and determined to help cities like Lynn be a part of this economic opportunity and access.
Thanks, Ken. And I am too. And let's thank our panelists. So before I hand it over to the mayor to wrap us up, I'll just say a few things. Thank you, Chris, Jim, and the mayor, and all of you for participating today. Thanks to the museum for hosting us, my team, Lori and Rhonda for helping. We'll follow up with an email information later or after the event. I think a couple of things, or one thing that really is exciting to me is, this is the beginning of a conversation with community and really thinking about how we can bring life sciences to Lynn together. Not life sciences coming in and plowing over the city, but bringing it to the city together. And having people with passion, with opinions that I might not agree with, is key to that progress. We want to have those conversations, and I give kudos to the city and everybody in general for making it open to those conversations. I think that is an important part of progress. And if we want to fill the jobs that we have to fill, and people don't understand the industry, that's a huge problem. And that's part of what I'm interested in doing with all of my colleagues and friends, is really having conversations about what biotech is and how we might be regulated, or how safe we are, or what our drivers are. And we're a family of pharma, and people in my extended family say to me, "Oh, big bad pharma, how awful are they?" That's fine. That's the conversation we should have, but we provide medicines that save lives. That's what we do. That's what drives me. Beyond all this, everything else that I do, that's one of the things that drives me. So I'm going to leave us with my charge for me is to continue the conversation with all of you about life sciences in Lynn and bringing it to Lynn, and working with the government and working with our other stakeholders. Industry, economic development, community is key and central to everything we do. And coming back and doing other events, or not even events, but interactions with people and members of your community. That's what I want to be doing. That's what's important. That's how we're going to drive change in life sciences here in the Commonwealth and in Lynn. Mayor?
Thank you so much, Professor Auclair. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you to our panelists for sharing all your insight. We really appreciate it. It's such a pleasure to have you and an honor to have you in the city. Thank you to all of you for being here. We'd also like to recognize our superintendent. We have a lot of educators here, a lot of folks from Lynn Public Schools, from cross education, and it's just so important to have you here. We really appreciate that, and really everyone that's been here for the thoughtful questions. This is such a great opportunity to have, to start and continue the kind of dialogue and conversation that's necessary to earn people's trust and really to capitalize on what we see as a tremendous opportunity. And I want the French to think in particular for the question about language access, because as a lot of you know, this is a huge priority for the city of Lynn. 40% of our residents are foreign born, and we're an international city. And we're starting to act like it. We've hired a language access coordinator, we've hired interpreters around City Hall, and we're hoping to set an example for the state, for the industry. And the industry, they know how to do business internationally. It's a global company. It's a global world, the global industry in biotechnology. And if they can bridge those gaps across countries, we can bridge those gaps in these communities and make sure that this is a place where everybody in the city of Lynn has an opportunity to thrive and be able to participate in what is really a tremendous opportunity to heal the world. So thank you all so much for being here.